everyone, and welcome to another deep dive with us. Today, we're going to be looking at animal organization. Like, how do we go from just a single cell to like a whole complex living being? And we're going to be taking a look at this through the lens of a biology textbook chapter. And this one focuses on frogs.
Yeah, it might seem a little strange to think about frogs, to learn about ourselves and stuff. But the cool thing about biology is that a lot of the same building blocks and systems are found throughout all the different kinds of animals.
Yeah, like it's kind of like if you were to look under the hood of like a really cool car, yours might look different on the outside. But under the hood, they all kind of have similar engines, right?
Yeah, that's a really good analogy. So just like an engine is built from, basic parts, animals start with the fundamental unit of life, the cell.
The cell. I remember learning about that in school. But it's amazing to think that like a single cell can like do all the stuff that keeps it alive
Yeah.
in a single-celled organism. Yeah, it's true. They're like these tiny little self-sufficient cities. But when we move into more complex creatures like our frog friend, things get more organized. And that's where tissues come in. Groups of similar cells working together to perform like very specific tasks.
Okay, so instead of one cell doing everything, it's like specialized teams of cells. Like how, on a construction site, you have electricians and plumbers and carpenters. They all work together to build a house. So how many different types of tissues are there? Are we talking hundreds?
You'd think so, but all complex animals, from frogs to us humans, were only built from four basic types of tissues: epithelial, connective, muscular, and neural.
Or just four? It's like building an entire city with just four different types of building materials. So tell me more. How do these tissues come together?
Well, they're the foundation for building organs, things like the heart, lungs, or the stomach. And they're made up of different tissues that work together for like a common goal.
So each organ has its own specialized job. What about the frog's stomach? Can you break down how those four tissue types work together there?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So think of the stomach like a high-powered food processor. The epithelial tissue lines the stomach and protects it from those harsh digestive acids. Connective tissue is kind of like the scaffolding, holding everything in place. Muscular tissue churns and mixes the food with the acids, while the neural tissue kind of controls the whole process, telling the muscles when to contract and the stomach when to release digestive juices.
Wow, so it's like this perfectly choreographed dance of tissues, each playing a super important role.
Exactly. But the real magic happens when all the organs start working together, forming organ systems like the digestive system or the respiratory system or the circulatory system. It's all about teamwork.
So the stomach is just one part of the digestive system. You've also got the mouth, esophagus, intestines, liver, and pancreas all working together to break down food and get those nutrients.
Exactly. Each organ has its own specialized task. And when they work together, they're able to achieve something way bigger than any single organ could on its own. This concept of organ systems is so important to understand. When we think about how complex organisms function,
It's like a super well-oiled machine with each part playing a really key role. Speaking of complex machines, frogs themselves are pretty amazing creatures. They can survive in so many different environments. This textbook chapter focuses on the Indian bullfrog, also known as Rana tigrina. What makes them so adaptable?
well, frogs have evolved some incredible survival strategies. One of the things I always thought was super cool was their ability to change color. They blend in with their surroundings and basically become invisible to predators.
Whoa, it's like they have their own invisibility cloak. That's so cool. It reminds me of a chameleon. But what about how they handle those super extreme temperatures? I've heard they can sleep through those scorching summers and those freezing winters. How do they do that?
You're right. During those really hot months, they do something called estivation. They basically burrow underground to conserve water and energy. And then during the winter, they hibernate. They slow down their metabolism to survive the cold.
It's like they have a superpower for every season. What other cool things do they have? I'm picturing a superhero frog now.
Well, unlike us, frogs don't need to drink water. They can actually absorb it through their skin. But it has to stay moist for that to work.
That makes sense. I remember learning they also have webbed feet, which are perfect for swimming, and those powerful hind legs for jumping really far distances. They're like little amphibian Olympians. But let's get back to the inside of their body. It's like we're about to do a virtual dissection without all the mess and the formaldehyde smell.
Awesome. Let's dive into frog anatomy and explore some of their key organ systems. And as we go through each one, we can connect it back to how it helps a frog to survive and thrive in its environment.
Sounds good. Let's start with the digestive system. Because frogs are carnivores, I'm curious how that affects their digestive tract. Do they have like a different setup than like herbivores?
That's a really great question. And yeah, their diet has a big impact on it. Because frogs mainly eat insects and other small animals, their digestive system is relatively short, compared to, say, a cow, which needs a way longer digestive tract to break down all that tough plant material.
Makes sense. It's all about efficiency. Can you tell me what role the liver and pancreas play in the frog's digestion?
Totally. The liver produces bile, which is stored in the gallbladder,
Hmm.
and helps to break down fats. And the pancreas carbohydrates and proteins. They're super important for digesting all those insects.
So it's a coordinated effort, just like in our own bodies. Speaking of which, I know frogs can breathe in water and on land. That's always been so cool to me. How does their respiratory system handle that double duty?
It really is amazing. In water, they use something called cutaneous respiration. It basically means they can absorb oxygen directly through their skin.
So, like, their skin acts like a giant lung? That's amazing. But what happens when they're on land? Do they switch to lungs like us?
Exactly. On land, they use their lungs to breathe, but their skin still helps with gas exchange, especially when they're resting.
Wow, so it's like they have a backup respiratory system. That's pretty neat. Okay, let's move on to their circulatory system. What's unique about a frog's heart and blood vessels?
Frogs have what we call a closed circulatory system, which means their blood always stays within their blood vessels. Their heart has 3 chambers, 2 atria and 1 ventricle.
3 chambers. That's interesting because humans have 4. Is that 3-chamber heart a specific adaptation for their lifestyle?
Exactly.
Yeah.
It helps them to live both in and out of the water. They also have a special feature called the hepatic portal system, which connects the liver and intestines. It allows for efficient processing of nutrients from food.
Fascinating. Is their blood similar to ours?
It's got the same basic parts, plasma and cells. But their red blood cells actually have a nucleus, unlike ours.
Huh. Another cool difference. Okay, moving on to waste removal. What about their excretory system?
Well, just like us, frogs need to get rid of waste. They have a really well-developed excretory system. It includes kidneys, ureters, a urinary bladder, and a cloaca.
And what does the cloaca do? Is that something that we have too?
The cloaca is a common chamber for waste from the digestive, excretory, and reproductive systems. It's like a multi-purpose exit. It's pretty different from our separate systems.
Wow, that's efficient. Okay, what about the nervous system? How do frogs sense their environment?
Frogs have a complex nervous system. Like other vertebrates, they have a brain, a spinal cord, and a network of nerves that go throughout their body. And their brain's divided into different regions, each controlling different functions.
What about their senses? How do they experience the world? I know they have great eyesight, but what about their other senses?
Oh, they have a whole range of senses. Eyes for sight, a tympanum for hearing, which is kind of like an eardrum, and sensory papillae for touch. They can also taste and smell.
So they're fully equipped to navigate their world. Now let's talk about their reproductive system. What's unique about frog reproduction? I remember learning about those cute little tadpoles.
Frog reproduction is definitely unique. They have separate male and female systems, of course. Males have testes that produce sperm, and females have ovaries that produce eggs. And unlike humans, fertilization happens outside the body, usually in water.
Right, and then the eggs hatch into those tadpoles.
Yes, and those tadpoles are aquatic larvae. They go through this incredible transformation called metamorphosis. Eventually, they'll develop into adult frogs.
It's amazing to think that we've covered so much, from tiny cells to these complex systems all working together.
It really shows just how complex and efficient their bodies are. And it's a great reminder that we share a lot of the same systems, even though we look and live very differently.
It's like we're connected to them at our core. But before we move on, I have a question. We talked about how frogs adapt to those extreme temperatures through estivation and hibernation. But how does our own body adapt to challenges? Like if the temperature changes or what we eat changes? I mean, our bodies are pretty incredible too.
You're right, our bodies are amazing, and that's where human physiology comes in. We'll dive into that right after this.
Okay, so we've explored like all the inner workings of a frog, but now I'm curious how their bodies like handle changes, like changes in temperature or their diet. We shiver when it's cold, we sweat when it's hot, our stomach growls when we're hungry, and then we feel full after like a big meal. What's the science behind all that?
Well, that's where human physiology comes in. It's basically how our bodies maintain balance and function in a changing environment. It's like having this team of expert engineers working behind the scenes, just keeping everything running smoothly.
So like our body has this internal control center making all these adjustments to like keep us comfortable and functioning. So let's break it down. How does our body regulate temperature?
Well, imagine your body has this built-in thermostat. When you get cold, your body shivers to generate heat. Your blood vessels also constrict to conserve heat. That's why your hands and feet might get cold first. And then when you get too hot, you sweat to cool down through evaporation.
Right, that makes sense. It's amazing how our bodies can do all that automatically without us even thinking about it. What about changes in our diet? How does our digestive system like adapt to like what we eat? Like sometimes I eat a big salad and then other times I'll have a big juicy burger. Does our body like handle those things differently?
Oh yeah, our digestive system is super adaptable. It can produce all sorts of different enzymes to break down different types of food. So for example, if you eat a steak, your stomach will produce more enzymes that break down protein. And then if you eat pasta, your body will focus on those enzymes that break down carbs.
So it's like our body knows what type of fuel it's getting and then adjusts accordingly. It's like a high-tech engine that can run on different types of fuel. Pretty impressive. But it's not just our digestive system, right? Does our whole body adapt?
Yeah, absolutely. Our bodies are constantly adapting to like everything, like the air we breathe to like the stress we experience. It's this dynamic process that keeps us balanced.
That's crazy to think about. All these intricate processes happening behind the scenes makes you appreciate how complex the human body is. But let's get back to our frog friend for a minute. We talked about their internal systems, but how do they like fit into the bigger ecosystem?
Well, frogs are super important for maintaining ecological balance. They're a critical link in the food chain, both as a predator and prey. They help to keep insect populations under control, which is good for agriculture and ecosystems in general.
So they're like little pest control agents. Maybe I should release them in my garden to get rid of those mosquitoes. But really, though, I can see how their role as both predator and prey keeps things in check. What happens if frog populations decline? Does that have like a ripple effect?
Oh, definitely. A decline in frogs can have a huge impact on the whole ecosystem. They're considered a sentinel species, which means they're really sensitive to environmental changes. So basically, their health can be an indicator of the overall health of the ecosystem.
So their health can tell us about like the health of the whole planet. That's really important. It makes you realize how connected everything really is. We can't just focus on one species. We have to think about the whole web of life. You mentioned earlier that frogs are a food source for humans in some cultures.
Yeah, that's right. In some parts of the world, frog legs are like a delicacy.
Yeah, I've heard of that. I don't know if I could try it, though. I guess it just depends on your culture. But it does make you think about, the ethics of eating animals.
It is a complex issue, for sure. Lots of different opinions on it. It's important to be aware of the impacts of our food choices and to consider, the sustainability and ethics of what we eat.
For sure. It's a good reminder that our actions have consequences. We need to be mindful of our impact on the environment and other creatures.
Absolutely. We need to think about how to live in a way that supports the planet and all of its inhabitants, including frogs.
This deep dive has really been an eye-opener for me. We've gone from the microscopic world of cells to the workings of organ systems and even how frogs are important to the planet.
Yeah, and through it all, we've uncovered these fundamental principles that apply to not just frogs, but to all complex animals, including ourselves. It really shows that we're all part of this interconnected web of life.
We've seen how different animals have all these amazing adaptations to survive in all sorts of environments, and how our own bodies are always adapting to changes around us. It's really incredible.
It's the beauty of biology, this never-ending exploration of interconnectedness.
Yeah.
And adaptation and just how amazing life is.
I love that. But before we wrap up, I have one last question. Thinking about all these systems working together so well, how does understanding animal organization help us understand ourselves better and like our place in the world?
That's a great question. By understanding how other animals are organized, we gain a deeper appreciation for how complex and amazing life is. We also learn more about our own biology and how we fit into the bigger picture.
So it's not just about learning facts about frogs. It's about understanding the rules that govern all life on Earth.
Exactly. And that understanding can help us make better choices about how we live our lives and interact with the world around us. It can even inspire us to protect all the different kinds of life on our planet.
Yeah, it's like they say, the more you learn, the more you realize you don't know. This deep dive has definitely opened my eyes to how amazing biology is.
And it's not just the science, I think understanding animal organization can make you feel a sense of awe. Like, wow, everything's connected.
Totally. Makes you realize we're all part of something way bigger than ourselves. We're all connected. From like The smallest little microorganism to like the biggest whale.
I agree. And I think that connection should inspire us to take care of the planet and everything on it. We're all in this together.
Well said. This deep dive has been quite a journey, exploring a frog's body and then thinking about our own place in the world. Really fascinating and makes you think.
It has been a pleasure sharing these insights with you. I hope this deep dive has sparked some curiosity in you to want to learn even more about biology.
And to our listener, we hope you enjoyed this exploration of animal organization. Remember, the journey of discovery never ends, so keep asking questions, keep exploring, and keep diving deep into the wonders of nature.
There's always something new to learn, something amazing to discover. So keep that curiosity alive.
Absolutely. And on that note, we'll wrap up this deep dive. Thanks for joining us. Until next time, keep learning and keep wondering.